while we haven't had a live for a while, I was sick. I was under the weather, as you heard on the last two shows. I was struggling with my voice. It was more than my voice. I mean, I was struggling. I really had a hard time out. So but I'm recuperating. I'm feeling better, and I'm thanking everyone for joining us and those who will join us later. And YouTube, please allow the show to go without a hitch. StreamYard, please allow the show to go without a hitch, okay? Because there's a lot in the news and a lot that we should address now. As we look, and we have a lot of clips we're going to try to play too. As we look to see what's going on in the news, and how this relates to America, how it relates to you, your pockets, your family livelihood, and the situation. Yes, we're going to address Ukraine. Yes, we're going to address Russia. We're going to address America. But there's so many other issues out there that get sidelined, that were already pushed back to page 6 in the so-called quote unquote newspaper. But we're going to address a few of those. But I also want to ask you all, and I see the chat, and I'll go to the chat in just a second. Um, I often want to ask you all, in the midst of America and her wars globally, why isn't she paying attention to her infrastructure at home? She has 40 to 60,000 bridges and roads that need immediate, not sometime down the line, but immediate repair right now. Some train and railing that needs repair right now, as you can see with the constant derailment of trains. Those in power have the highest contempt for the citizenry, because they feel that nothing else matters but their desires and what's in their mind. I want you to think about this for a second. These people strategically ascend to power to push and promote an agenda that they have had in their head and their heart for years, and some of them since their inception. Victoria Nuland comes to mind. Her husband Kagan comes to mind. Wolfowitz comes to mind, and all of these other people from the New American Century, and all of these other so-called quote unquote think tanks. What's the one Nuland founded? The Center for War, the study for war and something. She founded. And these people constantly get more people indoctrinated into this thought. And they will, without regards to the national security of the nation, or without regards to the livelihood of the people, without regards to the future of these people, they will use all of the resources at the disposal of a nation to try to carry out a plan that is detrimental to the people of that said nation, and the nation that has the bullseye on them, and the people of that nation that has the bullseye on them. This is utter lunacy. They will use every instrument and every organ at their disposal to get public opinion on their side, and they'll continue to repeat the thing, and the media will go along with it, because they strategically put people in place to do this. They have it in the alternative media, so-called alternative media, and they continue to do this. And all while at home, America's falling apart. Now I want to go to something real quick, because this is very telling, okay? Let's go to something real quick. Right here. Let's go to this one real quick. Excuse me. On the Economic Collapse blog, it reads like this. And let me go to it real quick. Here we are right here. Uh-oh. Boom, 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 boom. Here we are. The article is titled, "Countless Americans Plunge into Despair as Hunger Spreads Like Wildfire Across America." Now, I want to stop for a minute, because I want to put something on your mind. If you go to any reports on the UK, you will see that hunger is exploding. Inflation is exploding across the UK. Why is this important, and how is this connected to the situation that America is facing. And if you go to the alternative media and even in some of the so-called mainstream media, you'll see that inflation is higher in the EU. You'll see that people are protesting and they're complaining and they're upset about the value of their currency and how it is taking more to buy less. You see that all around the world, but it's specifically and especially in the Western world. Now, I said that to go back to this article, okay? Because I want to put that on your mind as we read this article and go along with this article, okay? So give me a second. Oh man, this YouTube, please don't start this right now. Hold on one. See. All right, here we are. YouTube is playing with the dash. I mean, StreamYard is playing with the dashboard. I'm sorry. All right, here we are. It reads like this. We haven't seen anything like this in a long time. A couple of factors are combining to push millions of America into a state of food insecurity. Now stop right there. Remember on one of our shows we did, I think it was a few weeks ago, about the food insecurity in America and around the globe, and how this war of choice and this war of aggression and this war to maintain dollar hegemony and U.S. position globally is backfiring and it is causing the shortages in fuel, in fertilizer, right? And all of the key and critical things that is needed in farming, not just in America, but around the globe, right? See the ramifications of the Kagan policy, the ramification of the Newland policies, the Blinken policies, because they're corrupt to the core and they have an inherent hatred for Russia. They are ready to push the entire world off a cliff just to settle scores that their family may have had with Russia decades and even a century or so ago. And the insanity and the lunacy of the leadership. And all actions have an equal or greater reaction according to science. Newland can't nullify that law. Kagan can't nullify that law. Joe Biden can't nullify that law. That is an inherent law in the base of the creation of the universe. Right? Okay. So let's go further. It says, first of all, food prices have been rising aggressively throughout the past year. And so our money does not go nearly as far as it once did. What is that called? That's called inflation. And what is inflation? Inflation is a hidden tax on the poor because it eats away at the purchasing power of the currency that you have to buy goods. So what once took $2 to buy now takes $4. And when you use that $4, you get half as much. So you constantly being taxed through their policies. You don't know that these are taxes. They don't tell you that these are taxes. They blame everything on Putin. The food went up. It's Putin's fault. My wife slapped me. That's Putin's fault. She's suffering from the effects of what Putin has done. The insanity of these people. My child got a C in school. That's Putin's fault. They don't put the blame where the blame goes. They just put the blame on a convenient person or thing or event so that it doesn't go where it should fall on them. The educational system is in disrepair. I continue to tell you this. They can fund wars, they can fund military endeavors, they can fund projects to try to come up with new weapons, new artillery, new manufacturing plants to manufacture these ships, tanks, weapons, warplanes, and bombs. But teachers are making $35,000 and $45,000 a year. These are the stewards of the lives of future leaders, scientists, educators, astronauts, engineers. These people are being defunded in the schools. And we know that education is what civilizes people. And when you don't have the right education or the proper education, you are considered a savage. Look at Kagan, look at Newland, even in these high positions, they are savage. And we can tell that they are savages because of the policies that they're enacting that is supposed to be representative of the people who they're supposed to represent. Only a savage would ravage a nation without second thought. Only a savage would lie to the people and continue to lie to the people to put across insane policies on the nation and the world abroad. This shows you the level of degradation in society. It shows you the level of degradation of the educational system, the political system, the justice system. And it only continues to morph. It morphs into something much worse. But this is what we're going through as we look at the fall of America. Let's be honest. Let's not pussyfoot around this. Let's not beat around the bush. We are living in the fall of the American empire and what looks to be the fall and decline of the American Republic and the Western world. This is why they're lashing out and their policies are becoming unhinged from reality. And they're blaming everybody but themselves. This is what's going on. But let's go further. See how all of this is connecting to the food prices and the educational system. Again, it is the proper education which civilizes us. Now, before I go back to this, something just came to my mind. Let's look at the inner city, and the violence that is going on in there. Okay? And the disregard for life. Where did they get that from? They are only mirroring back what the government sees. It's a trickle-down effect. They are mirroring back what they see the government and those in power do. When America can't have a way, what does she do? She goes over there and takes things. She robs people. She kills people. Hell, she is robbing Yemen right now. She's robbing Syria right now while talking about the territorial integrity of Ukraine. She's trying to destabilize the Horn of Africa right now because she's mad and throwing a hissy fit that Russia and China are making friends over in Africa. Just the other day, she was talking about Iran is in Africa making deals to try to colonize. The colonizer blaming somebody else for colonialism. Do you understand? So when you look at the inner city, where does the guns come from? Well, it comes from the manufacturers. Are there any urban city gun manufacturers in America? No. Where does the drugs come from? America has been fighting a war on drugs for 40, 50 years, right? And her war is in the urban city. It's not at the borders to prevent them from coming in. Now she can use satellite intelligence to look at the battlefield in Ukraine and pinpoint where Russia's weaponry is, Russia's warplanes are. But she can't use that same technology to pinpoint where trucks of cocaine are entering into the border. The degradation of society. They have put priorities, their priorities are wrong, and they put them in the wrong place. There are not one person in urban America owns submarines. Not one of them are in control of the borders of America. Not one of them have a satellite. Not one of them owns cargo planes or trains. But yet the urban America continues to be flooded with drugs and guns, and yet they manufacture none of it. That is no coincidence. It is to destabilize certain portions of the society, dumb down, and present them as uncivilized, and they must be handled by the government. And how do I know that? Just look at the playbook. Look at what happened in Iraq. Look at what happened in what is it, Colombia, when they overthrew the government, or Honduras, or Peru, or Bolivia, or Libya, or Ukraine. The playbook is right there, right? So we have to be honest. A lot of people don't like to address these issues, but they're so interconnected, and you can talk about the fall of Bakhmut all you want to. You can talk about the military face-off of Russia in America or Russia in NATO. But if you don't connect the underlying issues, there's something missing to connect it all to give you the full picture. And what we're looking at is an unraveling of American power globally and American society domestically. See, with their mind, they believe, well, they can, for the most unlearned in urban America, they can kill birds, more than one bird with one stone. I can flood your community with drugs. I can flood your community with guns. I can turn this block against that block. Then I can benefit because I can take the money that I seized in the drug bust, invest it in my military, in my police forces. I can recycle this over and over again and keep these people off balance while profiting to wage wars over there. They're doing it over there to here, and they're doing it here to over there. It's rinse, wash, and repeat. And while they're doing this, the society itself is suffering enormous damage because there's the breakup of families. There's the destruction of homes and lives. There's no focus on education and prospering in the future in the correct way. And this is damaging the American Republic because you're dumbing down people who would be beneficial to the future of the nation. They're doing that over there, right? They're doing it over there. They, even in the midst of an economic collapse, the dollar decline, right? Rising poles of power. America continues to alienate the very people who she wants to buy her debt. I'll sanction you. I'll do this. I'll do that. If you don't do this, I'll do that. Follow what I say, not what I do. Is that not right? Domestically, you see it. Internationally, you see it. It's a mirror me back perpetual motion. Let's go further in this. All right. It says, first of all, food prices have been rising aggressively throughout the past year. And so our money does not go nearly as far as it once did. Meanwhile, food stamp benefits are being slashed. See, but they can find money for war. They can find money for military bases. They can find money to engage in covert operations of destabilization, color revolution, overthrow, and assassination of government officials around the world and governments around the world. Priorities, misplaced priorities. So let's go further. The federal government had greatly enhanced food stamp benefits for many Americans during the pandemic. But now that emergency program is coming to an end. So what this means is that many Americans are going to have very little money to spend on food at a time when economic conditions are starting to get really rough. The Washington Post recently sent a reporter named Tim Craig to Kentucky, and he discovered that poor people are waiting in a mile-long line just to get some free food. A mile long. This is America, the wealthiest country in the world. Isn't that what they say? The most prosperous nation on the planet. But in good old America, in every state, we see this. There's homelessness everywhere, right? Violence everywhere. There's no respect of life or the sanctity of life or the sanctity and security of family. And then they try to force feed you this mess about other genders and all of this foolishness. Do you not see that all of this is a sign of a declining and falling power? And if you don't agree with this, in the eyes of society, the media, and the government, you're out of touch. You want to keep it like this. A man marries a woman, vice versa. And I'm not, listen, for those of you who may not be, I'm not against you. I just don't get it, your lifestyle. You understand? And I don't force feed mine down your throat, so you shouldn't force feed yours down mine. Because I hear a lot of people, so-called of other genders, always talking about stuff like this. But what they don't talk about is they're always in your face with their sexuality. They're always in your face telling you what you should be thinking, believing, doing, and trying to do. And they disregard centuries and centuries and centuries of tradition, and you're out of touch. And the media goes with this because there's an agenda behind this. They want to weaken the foundations of God. There's an agenda behind this. I won't accept it. I won't be forced into this. None of that. Let's go further. And I know YouTube may suspend me, but I didn't mention any people. I just said a few things. Okay, let's go further. It says, man, let's see if the screen is gonna let me go. Okay, yeah. It says, as he claimed the first spot in a mile-long line for free food in the Appalachian foothills, Danny Blair vividly recalled receiving the letter announcing that his pandemic-era benefit to help buy groceries was about to be slashed. Kentucky lawmakers have voted to end the state's health emergency last spring, by default cutting food stamp benefits created to help vulnerable Americans like Blair weather the worst of COVID-19. Instead of a $200 a month, he would just get $30. Now stop right there. Why is it that when Americans and people here need help, the government always has to debate on it? Always, and they're willing to cut it, they or not pass this or not, but let them go before the Armed Services Committee. Not only can they find $800 billion for the War Department, they will find more, 10 billion, 20 billion, 50 billion, 100 billion, 80 billion, 180 billion more in supplemental spending for the war machine. That's a problem. That's a problem. When you are more concerned about waging war around the world, your interests around the world, but you don't have interests right here in America with the citizenry of America. You make that make sense. Your interest, you got interest in Syria. You have interest in South America. You have interest, so you say, in Africa and in Asia. You have an interest in dividing China and its province, Taiwan. But you have little to no interest in the welfare, the security, and the well-being of the people in America. These are misplaced priorities. Again, there's a very old saying that would be well used if it was heeded. Charity starts at home, then it spreads abroad. You cannot secure security interests 8,000 miles away from your shore and neglect the security situation here at home. How in the hell can that work? Common sense tells us that wouldn't work. Just look at your block for a second. Say, for instance, you live in a certain neighborhood, say a cookie cutter neighborhood, okay? And you live in a subdivision. And in the subdivision, it was getting harder and harder to pay bills and things were happening in the subdivision. But at every turn, you and your children were in a subdivision 6 states over trying to tell them what to do. Things are getting rough in that subdivision. Don't you know your house becomes a target? Don't you know the people that you left in that house becomes a target? Why? Because you have invested your time, your thoughts, your efforts your money into trying to secure something for the 6 states over. And you have left your underbelly, your house, your home, your livelihood open. Common sense. And you don't have to be a strategist. You don't have to be an analyst. You don't have to be a very schooled in geopolitics to understand this. This is basic common sense, which is not so common in today's political environment, geopolitical environment, or economic environment. You know? So let's go a little further. I see Rashid in the booth. I just looked down. I'll bring you in a second, Rashid. Let me finish this thought. Excuse me. So he goes further and he says, Blair actually gets up at 4 a.m. in the morning so that he can be the first in line for these handouts. On the Friday that the reporter from the Washington Post interviewed him, he ended up standing in that line for 9 hours. I couldn't imagine waiting in line for that long, but Blair feels like this is what he and his wife must do in order to survive. So you relegate the people within your borders to actions like this. And yet you're talking about Ukraine is in your national interest, and you can find another 4 billion, 5 billion, 10 billions to wage an unjust war that you provoked and that you are maintaining so that you can try to weaken Russia for your sadistic geopolitical ambitions so that you cannot have a rival on the stage. I thought you said that it was free competition, but you were trying to suppress China, Iran, Venezuela, Russia, Syria. You're trying to suppress anyone that you may deem a rival to your world order. All the while, people at home are suffering untold sorrows. And you're saying that doing that is for the national interest. Well, what about within your borders and the people, the violence, the hunger, the unemployment, the hopelessness of the people within your own borders? What about them? These are the people that you say you represent. How can you secure interests 8,000 miles away when you have left your interests within your own belly, within your own border, exposed? You make that make sense. You make it make sense. I'm gonna bring Rashid in. I know he want to cook on this, and I know he has something to say about this. Rashid.